Orthorexia versus anorexia. What's the difference? Or is there even a difference? In today's video, I'm comparing orthorexia versus anorexia to help you better understand your eating disorder. Managing an eating disorder can be a lonely journey. For in-depth information and strategies for managing your eating disorder, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell in the corner so you're notified when I publish a new video every Wednesday. I'm Meredith McKenzie of Parallel Wellness. I'm a registered clinical counselor, eating disorders therapist, and doctoral graduate student. In my work with hundreds of clients with eating disorders, I've helped support them to loosen the grips of their eating disorder so they can live fulfilling lives with freedom from food and compensatory behaviors. Now it's your turn. Before we get started, I want to provide a disclaimer. While I am a registered clinical counselor and I work with lots of clients with eating disorders, the information in this video is for informational and educational purposes only. If you are concerned that you may be struggling with an eating disorder, please reach out to a medical professional or a therapist or a dietitian who specializes in eating disorder treatment. So what is the difference between orthorexia versus anorexia? First, let me explain that while orthorexia has been identified to have very specific characteristics, it's not an eating disorder that is identified in the DSM-5 or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, Edition 5. This is a very large manual that was created by committees and committees of people that are experts in the field. So a lot of work goes into identifying what are these eating disorders and what characteristics or what criteria must a person meet in order to get this specific diagnosis. And because symptoms of orthorexia have been recognized in the last 20 years, starting with Dr. Stephen Bratman, and is now also a more recognizable term among the general population, I would imagine that the committee members who are sitting together and talking about which eating disorders are going to be included within the DSM have likely been talking about characteristics of orthorexia and where they fit in with the existing eating disorders for several years now. Either way, anorexia nervosa has been identified and recognized as an eating disorder for many years now, and orthorexia has not. So first, let's start talking about how orthorexia versus anorexia are different. While both orthorexia and anorexia nervosa are characterized by a preoccupation with food and identifying foods as good and bad, orthorexia is focused on how food impacts perceived health, whereas anorexia is characterized by how food impacts a person's weight, shape, and appearance. In action, the behaviors that a person engages in can be very similar between the two. And this all depends on what a person deems as healthy in terms of what they're eating and their exercise patterns. If you watched my last video on how orthorexia was discovered, you'll remember that our society has become more and more focused on appearance in relation to health and fitness. So the gap between what is considered orthorexia and what is considered anorexia has actually been getting smaller. Whenever we put a label of good or bad on our food, it automatically puts an evaluation on ourselves and how we perceive ourselves in relation to what we're eating. Orthorexia involves a similar shame cycle as with other eating disorders, leading us to judge ourselves negatively when we step out of line of whatever the disordered eating has told us is this prescribed way that we should be eating. Maintaining this type of relationship with food where we're restricting ourselves, we're evaluating ourselves, and really judging ourselves for everything that we're eating, and then feeling shame when we deviate from that, it really just sets us up to inevitably have to step out of line because we can't be perfect all the time, experience that shame, and repeat the cycle. And orthorexia is no different. Inevitably, shame leads us to eat the things that we've deemed as wrong, which leads to more shame, and then the cycle continues. And this is essentially the crux of what makes eating disordered. Comment below and let me know your thoughts on orthorexia as a possible eating disorder. Based on your experience, how does orthorexia versus anorexia feel different, or are they the same to you? So now for the similarities. Orthorexia and anorexia have a lot in common. Overall, both disorders revolve around an excessive focus on food-related topics, strict diet, perfectionism, and control. And what's important to recognize in terms of differentiating or really understanding anorexia versus orthorexia is recognizing that both might come from a different place, a different mindset, a different real focus or underlying concern for the individual, but the behaviors can look very similar in practice. So some of the things that are common, some of the common signs and symptoms between orthorexia versus anorexia are strict behaviors or rituals that are associated with meal preparation and planning, intrusive food-related thoughts, an increased amount of time thinking and planning and obsessing about food, allowing one's schedule to really revolve around this food and planning and eating, refusing to go out to eat at different restaurants or to connect with friends over food because what you're comfortable eating is not on the menu. Both often result in isolating yourself from other people or avoiding social events that food is present at. And even though orthorexia is focused on health and nutrition, both orthorexia versus anorexia can result in malnutrition. So what does this all mean? Are orthorexia and anorexia actually distinct disorders from one another? Personally, I view orthorexia and anorexia as overlapping in many ways, but also distinct in some other ways. First, it's possible for someone to meet all the criteria for orthorexia while not meeting the clinical criteria for anorexia nervosa according to the DSM-5. Or someone can be struggling with anorexia nervosa and not fit the description of orthorexia. There's also a middle zone where characteristics of orthorexia clearly overlap with anorexia nervosa. I'm curious if orthorexia might one day become a specifier for anorexia nervosa. This means that a person could be diagnosed with anorexia nervosa according to the DSM-5 or a future edition, and then demonstrate aspects of orthorexia that specifies the type of anorexia that they're experiencing. So orthorexia would actually be a subtype of the anorexia that they are struggling with. And this could be really helpful in informing the client as well as practitioners about how this person is struggling, helping them with diagnosis, but also treatment recommendations that are specific to how they are feeling challenged. This could go a long way in understanding eating disorders further and informing treatment teams. Now, if you're looking to get started on your eating disorder journey, I've created a mindful eating log, which I share with my clients in private practice all the time. And I've provided a link in the description box down below where you can get a copy for yourself for use at home. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with anyone you think would benefit from learning more about eating disorders or orthorexia. This is my series on orthorexia that I'm doing on the channel this month, and if you're looking to get more information and you want to learn more about orthorexia, please come back next week. I look forward to seeing you in the next video on Wednesday.